Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, this is becoming a every other week occurrence in which we'll talk about what we're doing as it relates to the gun violence emergency, and particularly the focusing in on zip codes. We've talked about 14605, we talked about 14611. Today we're going to talk about the work that's happening in 14621. I'm joined today by Corporation Counsel Linda Kingsley, Captain Sam Lucian from the Rochester Police Department, my advisor on violence prevention services, Victor Saunders, my commissioner of the Department of Recreation and Human Services, Dr. Shirley Green, my commissioner of the Neighborhood and Business Development, Dana Miller, Sherman Dickerson, who's the president of the Joseph Avenue Business Association, Bill Ferguson, board vice president of the Joseph Avenue Arts and Culture Alliance, and a guy that has one of the coolest names I've ever heard, David Pacific. Where's David? There he is, David Pacific, who is executive director of the Joseph Avenue Business and Culture Alliance, and by two of my council colleagues, Council President Miguel A. Melendez and Northeast Representative Michael A. Patterson, who represents, I think I should underline that, he actually represents the area, the Northeast area, so he knows a lot about this area. Just let me give you a thumbnail sketch of this area, because I know some of you need GPS to get around Rochester. You haven't been around here as much as I've been. This area is probably one of our most diverse areas in the city. But 40% of the population in this area lives below the poverty line. 60% of the children in this area live below the poverty line. The median household income is about $27,582. 85% of the population is minority. And this is a neighborhood that has its challenges, but also has its opportunities. And today we're going to spend a lot of our time talking about the opportunities. I will just remind you that I had the opportunity to renew our gun violence emergency. I renew it, I look at it every month. It is renewed for another month. And the reason why I renewed it is because it is yet another tool that I have in the toolbox to be able to address much of the nonsense. I don't have a scientific word for it, much of the nonsense that we've seen in some of our neighborhoods, which I said that we are not going to tolerate in the city of Rochester. I want to also start with, we're going to start with some brief updates from my department heads, who are going to give you an updates on some of the things that we're working on related to 14621. I got a busy day, so I'll take a couple of questions after that, maybe one off topic, and then we'll wrap up for the day. But I want to start with Corporation Counsel Linda Kingsley. And speakers, please don't take my papers.
I did that once, and you'll never let me forget it. Good afternoon. We spent a fair amount of time talking about Loomis Street yesterday with all of you, so I'm not going to go through all the details of that again. But in summary, after many months of working with the county and various not-for-profits, and of being clear about our intent to close Loomis Street, the city has commenced the installation of a fence around the site. Once the fence is complete, the Loomis Street encampment will be fully inaccessible. This action was necessary in a balance of the needs of those who have been living at Loomis with the needs of the neighborhood. As of about an hour ago, the census of Loomis Street was down very low, and it's my understanding that the remaining individuals there are in the process of being placed and have accepted various options from House of Mercy to Open Door Mission, to Peace Village, to going out on their own. But this census is significantly lower than it was even yesterday. As the installation progresses, we continue to work with various not-for-profits in the hope that all of the inhabitants will leave for better and safer facilities. And I want to emphasize that we have worked and will continue to work with our community partners in various county agencies and not-for-profits, PCHO among them, to address the homelessness crisis in general in the city of Rochester. Just a couple of other notes on 14621 matters that the law department's dealing with. 1085 Norton was a location that was not licensed to have any kind of entertainment or parties and was blatantly hosting illegal parties. The mayor talked about renewing the gun violence emergency. We know that many acts of gun violence have occurred at these illegal parties, and we used the gun violence proclamation to issue a closure order shutting that location down. The landlord has, since we've done that, removed the tenant. But we were able to act quickly. You know, we heard about a party and were able to act within hours because of the gun violence proclamation. This was one of the many examples where we have used the gun violence proclamation to close problem businesses. And then just as far as housing enforcement, we've recently taken 6 deteriorated vacant properties in 14621 to demolition hearings, and there has been no challenge to those hearings, so those properties will be demolished. We brought code enforcement proceedings on a number of properties, and now that we have a dedicated full-time housing attorney, we are seeing much faster compliance from landlords when we start proceedings, because they know we mean business and they know we have the capacity to enforce.
Thank you, Linda. If you live in 14618 or another zip code, ask yourself, would you tolerate what was happening in 14621 at Loomis Street? The answer would be no. If you lived in 90210, you guys remember that TV show? Would you tolerate what was happening at Loomis Street? The answer would be a resounding hell no. You would not. And what's happening on Loomis? We had individuals who do not live in that neighborhood, who are not experiencing drug needles, fights, violence, trying to tell the residents who actually live there how they should live their lives. And I wouldn't be doing my job if we let Rochester continue down that path, and we are not going to let that happen. And that's why Loomis Street had to be addressed. Humanely, humanely, humanely. No one was kicked out, and I believe that the actions around Loomis Street have been talked about since January 1st of 2022. Intensive efforts, 7 separate visits in the last 2 months, encouraging people, stop leaving here. September, someone stabbed and almost killed at an inch of their life. Sunday, dead body, dead on arrival on Loomis Street. Would that happen in Brighton? Would it happen in Pittsburgh? It wouldn't happen anywhere else. So anyone that has a problem with that, you're going to tell me the statistic that I just read about this neighborhood bearing the burden of being one of the most poorest neighborhoods in the state, but yet they should take more of the burden of a place where drugs are sold openly, and people shoot up drugs openly, and people die openly, and that's okay. We say no. With that, I want to have Captain Sam Lucian, who is, Captain Lucian, they might have upgraded your title. You're the captain of this section, right?
Yes, sir.
You're not the commander yet. Captain Sam Lucian, who has been working admirably on this issue, I want to have him come and talk about some of the work that is happening in this area. We want to make sure that we focus just on the problems. We identified what the problems are, but now we want to talk about the solutions. As Rochesterians, we are great at problem identification. So we've laid out what the problems were. But now let's talk about the solutions of what we're going to do to get to where we need to be, to move this zip code off of that list of one of the poorest in New York State. Captain Lucian.
Thank you. They say life is filled with many tests. I guess I just experienced one when my title was changed dramatically just now. I'll try to overcome that. But just to piggyback on what was already said, on Loomis Street, we did begin outreach efforts dating back to September 30th, formal outreach efforts. And I really have to thank the person in crisis team from the city of Rochester, the Monroe County Department of Health, the FIT team from Monroe County, as well as the Monroe County Impact team. The approach was truly holistic, and they treated each person as an individual and truly humanized them. Each of these folks that are suffering on Loomis Street, because it's true, they are suffering, they have their own story and they have their own history. And each of these resources did their level best to help these folks get out of that suffering. We're still working through the situation over there, and as of right now, there's no one on the property. That could change, but we're doing our best to make sure that everyone has resources available. As I said, this has been going on for almost 60 days with multiple resources offered on each occurrence. Sadly, on Sunday, we did have a death, a 52-year-old male city resident. It's still under investigation. Any additional details will come out from the Monroe County Medical Examiner's Office on that. But it's tragic. Anytime a life is lost, sharing some of the concerns with some of the residents of Loomis Street. What's more valuable than a human life? And of course, nothing in this world. So we're still working through that, and we really appreciate the help from our partners. Regarding violent crime, as a rule of thumb, generally 1% of the population is crime involved, and as a rule of thumb, and I say this very generally with statistical analysis based on criminal justice research that's available, generally you're going to have the top 10% of that 1% be involved in violent crime. So if you do the math on that, Rochester's got about 200,000 people. The top 1% would be 2,000, and therefore the top 10% of that would be 200 people. So through the Monroe County, through the Monroe County GIVE program, the Gun Involved Violence Elimination Program, we do focus on the top 200 to 300 people with various intervention services. We partner up with Pat Stone on that. In Clinton section, the northeast portion of Rochester, and also in specifically 14621, we focus on those folks as well as our street segments that have the highest percentage of gunfire incidents. Typically, places and people will coalesce around violent incidents. So if you focus on the most violent people and the most violent places, that can help you to reduce gun violence, and that's our strategy here. With regard to the street segments that we have in the Northeast, they're all familiar streets that I'm sure you'd all be familiar with, and they typically have the higher number of gunfire incidents that have occurred. When I say gunfire incidents, I mean a house being shot up, a person being shot, a person being killed, a car being shot up, or what's defined under New York state law as prohibited use of a weapon when someone fires a gun in the air and doesn't strike anything. Should be noted that those incidents have a very close nexus to each other. When someone fires a gun illegally, were they aiming at someone? It depends on the investigation if we find that out. If they hit someone and don't kill them, were they trying to kill them? Most likely. So a lot of the gun crime incidents that we see are related to violent disputes, and we try to investigate each one to the fullest because anytime someone fires a gun, it could be the next homicide. Some strategies that we're working on relative to the gun crime incidents are something that's known in criminal justice circles as case of place. That's where we look at violent persons and a place that's known for gun crime incidents, and we take a very holistic approach. Arrest is not only, it's not a goal, arrest is a tool that's used in the outcome of those cases. So that's important to know because I know you'll historically say we can't arrest our way out of this, and that's true. You have to use a holistic approach towards it. And then lastly, and I say this very, very cautiously, our gunfire incidents do seem to be moving in the right direction. It does take a long time to see a trend statistically. I'm not an expert on statistics, and I've been told over and over again by our business analysts to say, or our crime analysts to say, listen, this is not a trend, but we are moving in the right direction, thankfully. Is it seasonality? It could be, but thankfully things are moving in the right direction. That's pretty much everything that I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. And also I want to thank the community as we remember to talk about gun violence for their tips and information that they have sent in. The mayor's office, my office, continues to get tips on things on a regular basis, including some of the most recent violent crime that we've seen in our community. So I want to thank the community for doing that and encourage them to continue. If you don't want to call 911 or 311 or those places, you know you can call my office. And I've talked to some of those people personally, and I hope that that will continue. All right, briefly, we're going to hear from other efforts going on in 14621. My advisor on violence prevention services, Victor Saunders.
Good afternoon. Excuse me. I'd like to say we're very excited about the different initiatives we've been able to utilize out of the Office of Violence Prevention programs. As the mayor stated, today's focus on the 14621 neighborhood. Our Pathways to Peace team is in this area at least once a week doing street outreach, building capacity with neighbors, and building relationships. We're connected with individuals who may be living the street lifestyle and offering them an alternative way to life and some opportunities made available within the community. Last month, we finished our round of peace barbecues, which included our final barbecue for the season at Joseph Avenue and Wilkins Street. One thing about that, the community outreach event facilitates relationships. And building these relationships allows us the opportunity to get to know the neighbors, and the neighbors get to know us, and offer opportunities for different relationships to grow into situations that build trust within the community. Once we have trust, and there's an opportunity to save lives, and saving lives is our goal. The mayor says all the time, Rochester's challenge with violence won't change overnight. It happens one interaction at a time, one relationship at a time, and that's what we're trying to build as we do outreach in different communities on a daily basis. One right decision at a time. We're going to do this collectively as a unit. Another way the Office of Violence Prevention continues to provide intervention and prevention opportunities through our reentry program. We are offering incarcerated individuals who are living in the 14621 neighborhood job training through a Young Adult Manufacturing Training Program, or YAMTEP. This is an excellent resource, an opportunity to assist young men and young women to successfully get back on their feet, feed their families, and become productive members of our community. We know the value of having gainful employment and what it means to a quality of life. Our reentry program is striving to do that. We are doing work inside the Monroe County Jail as well as when individuals are released. Once again, we remain committed to this community effort through our outreach to ensure the safety and well-being of city youth and its residents. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can put in a plug for the Young Adult and Manufacturing Training Program that Mr. Saunders mentioned, again, that is a way to change lives in a transformational way, particularly individuals that are in that 14621 zip code. So we are grateful for that program, the work of Tyrone Reeves and all the people at YAMTEP that they are doing to help move folks on. Economic empowerment is absolutely critical to changing neighborhoods and changing lives. And YAMTEP is a program that's doing that. We have invested in that through our American Rescue Plan Act. We've encouraged the county to invest in that program, and they have as well. And that is part of the collaboration that's there. Dr. Shirley Green, the Commissioner of Recreation and Human Services. Dr. Green.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. The Department of Recreation and Human Services is looking forward to providing children and families in the 14621 zip code with many activities to participate in during this holiday season, because we know that staying active and providing a safe space for families and children to play are the best way to build healthy and strong children and address some of the traumas that our families are facing in the community. Our recreation centers offer a variety of activities this holiday season. First, we are partnering with the Joseph Avenue Arts and Cultural Program on Make the Art Party at the David Gant Art Center on Saturday, December 3rd. And in the spirit of promoting peace, Councilmember Willie Lightfoot will be hosting his annual Cut the Violence event at the David Gant Art Center on Monday, December 5th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. The community support team will be hosting its drop-in services on Wednesday, December 7th at the Mount Vernon Missionary Baptist Church located on Joseph Avenue from 12 noon to 2 p.m. We will also be participating in the Christmas tree lighting celebration on December 10th at the International Plaza. And then the Carter Street Recreation Center, the Trenton and Pamela Jackson Recreation Center, and the Avenue D Recreation Centers are all hosting holiday celebrations, breakfasts, and activities throughout the month of December. There will be games, sports activity, and movie nights throughout the week of spring break when our children are out of school. Please visit any of these locations to find specific dates and times. In 14621, we look forward to celebrating the holiday season with all of our families and children. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Green. We want to make sure that we know what happens during the holidays. The last briefing we gave, we talked about trauma and loss during the holiday seasons. Anything that we can do from the city of Rochester perspective to make sure that we help fill that void for families during the holidays, we're going to try to do it, and we'll continue to do that. As you heard from Dr. Green, particularly zeroing in on 14621, some things that will be happening there. Dana Miller, Commissioner of Neighborhood and Business Development, for a brief update.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity. We, as the mayor said, are looking at not so much problems as we are solutions and investments. And I just want to talk briefly about the fact that we are making, both as a city, as a county, as a community, major investments in the 14621 area. We've talked before about Edna Craven Estates, 164 new units of housing in 7 different buildings that have been completed in 14621, a $34 million investment. That also goes along with another major investment that's taking place. One of our major employers in 14621 is Hickey Freeman. Hickey Freeman, as all of you know, makes suits. And Hickey Freeman is world-renowned for the work that they do in that area. But they have a factory now that is a little inefficient and oversized for their use. So we are working with them to transform their factory into a more modern, single-floor, 77,000 square foot factory, and taking the remainder of the building and making 134 affordable apartments in the building. That is a $74 million investment in 14621 to provide much needed housing, but also a more efficient manufacturing environment for one of our very important employers. We have other major investments. We don't have anyone here from the library, but we're making a major investment in the Lincoln Branch Library on Joseph Avenue. It is closed right now for the renovations, but when it is completed, it will be a very significant improvement to that library. We have some folks here from the Joseph Avenue Arts and Cultural Alliance, so I don't really want to say a lot about that and perhaps take their thunder, but it is a historic synagogue, the historic synagogue B'nai Israel, which has been vacant for a great many years, but it's a beautiful structure. It has, as folks in the housing industry like to say, great bones. It is a building that has needed significant renovation for many years, and this Arts and Cultural Alliance is working very hard now to convert that building into a world-class performing arts center. So we are certainly looking at ways of helping that. There's also been a major expansion to School 50, which is just down the street from there. And that's a 55,000 square foot expansion, including a new gym, new locker rooms, classrooms, about $16 million of investment in that school. As all of you would also know, Rochester General Hospital is part of the Rochester Regional Health System. That is also in 14621 and has recently added 312,000 square feet to the building, including 23 operating rooms and 128 private rooms at a cost of $253 million. So a major, major investment in the 14621 area. And another major investment is the former Kodak Hawkeye plant, which is on St. Paul Street in 14621. That is a massive building, 785,000 square feet. That building has been purchased, and $55 million investment is converting that into major warehouse space, including the creation of a foreign trade zone so that goods can be shipped into the United States, kept in the foreign trade zone, and then only when they're shipped out of the Hawkeye facility are they charged with duties. So it provides a great opportunity for overseas manufacturers to get goods into the United States. And you also heard a minute ago about Yamtep. The company that's behind Yamtep is Trueform Manufacturing. And Trueform is another major employer in the 14621 area. They do machining, manufacturing, and assembly, almost anything that you can imagine. When I walked through there and saw all of the people with the lathes and the drill presses and all of the various mechanical construction devices in there, it's just truly amazing to see the people. And these are people from the neighborhood working in there who have been trained to do this high-tech, high-quality manufacturing and then are able to have jobs there. So those are all major, major enhancements that are being made in the 14621 area and very tremendous investments. Thanks.
Thank you, Dana Miller. Those investments are absolutely critical. You can't bring poverty down without economic development. You can't stop violence without economic development, economic empowerment. So these investments are important, just as we invest in our human services. We have to make sure that we also not forget about the economic development side of the house. We have two folks from the neighborhood that I want to have say some words. Sherman Dickerson, who is president of the Joseph Avenue Business Association. Sherman understands this neighborhood well. He knows what happens in this neighborhood well. Sherman has talked to us for years about Loomis and other challenges that we have in this neighborhood. And he is one of the neighbors that we value, and we are glad that he is here to share a few words on behalf of the Joseph Avenue Business Association.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to say that we're back here again. We were here a couple of weeks ago talking about Loomis Street. You know, everybody saw the interview, and this is what action is all about. You know, I'm sick and tired of people complaining about the city's not doing this, the city's not doing that. We just had all these people from this administration that came up here, laid out the plan, the resources that are here that are available to the public. We, as the public, have to take advantage of the resources. Me being the type of person I am, I know about the resources. I always try to tell everybody, you know, everybody who calls my phone, they think I give out grants, which I don't. You know, I tell them, the city has a lot of things. You just have to go down there, see how they can help you. This enclosement, you know, it meant a lot to be closed. I've been in this neighborhood my whole life. I've been all over the city, but I've been in this neighborhood my entire life. I'm old enough to remember when it was a thriving business quarter. Those that are older than me know what I'm talking about. And to see what has happened, you know, people drive through, but nobody's stopping because the level of violence that was there. Now, these things are being addressed, and for one, I'm happy to see it. Yes, the city is still plagued by epidemic proportion of violence, but, you know, they can't take the time you want them to go after the killers. How can they do that when they're trying to clean up Loomis Street? You know, you're pulling resources in all different directions. So stop complaining and become proactive, you know. These neighbors, they've been proactive, you know the old saying, the greasy wheel gets what? The squeaky wheel gives what? All right, so this is what we have to do. You have to keep complaining. There's a lot of resources out here that's available to you, but if you just sit back and talk about something, you know, it'll never get done. I'm, for one, I'm very happy that they closed the encampment. Like somebody just died there. They don't know how he died, but he died there. We don't want any more deaths. We don't want the children to be walking over needles, stepping over defecation. You know, we shouldn't have to live like that. And I'm just glad that it's happened. You know, it happened, they were redirected to other places because a lot of them didn't want to leave. The help been there. They didn't want to leave. But with, you know, the city constantly coming back, you know, talking to them, not browbeating, but talking to them, convincing them to seek other resources because after all, it's getting cold. We want nobody to die from hypothermia, nobody to freeze to death. So I'm just happy that the administration is action administration. They're not just talking about it, you know, but they're putting actions into words, and I can see that. And this press conference, that's what that was all about. I'm happy to be a part of it. Anything I can do to help, I'm always here. Thank you.
Thank you, Sherman, and thank you for your partnership and work on Joseph Avenue. We greatly appreciate it, and for being a voice, along with the council colleagues, on what's happening in these neighborhoods. We're going to have Bill Ferguson talk about the exciting opportunities that are happening at the Joseph Avenue Arts and Cultural Alliance. You heard us allude to some of the partnerships that we have going on there, but that is another building that is set vacant for years and started to become an eyesore. And that is a space that we are now going to address. So, Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mayor Evans. Hello. Some of you may know me as the Executive Director of Garth Fagan Dance, so I'm going to tell you right now, I'm more used to dancing in front of people than talking. So forgive me a little bit. Hello, everybody, and thank you for the invitation and inclusion that has me here in two capacities. First, as the Executive Director of Garth Fagan Dance, and all it means for diversity, inclusion, and economic hope for businesses, communities, and people of color. And secondly, in my honored capacity as Vice President of the Joseph Avenue Arts and Cultural Alliance, and all the work we do to make equity and opportunity a real thing for real people. We are thankful and appreciative for all of you being here and adding to what is possible. Thank you especially to Mayor Malik Evans, the Mayor's Office, the Legislature, County Executive Alvin Bello, Michael Melendez, Mr. Patterson, all of y'all, and anyone else of note who I'm missing, and of course everybody here, the members of the community who truly are the investors in what is possible in Monroe County and in this community of which I now stand. Thank you. And I also want to thank the city, and again, Mayor Evans. When it comes to finding appropriations to help companies and organizations of color, let me say organizations of color, speaking of Garth Fagan Dance and the Avenue Black Box Theater and more, we love copycats. Find some money for us and we will gladly accept it. And that's one of the things we're looking to do, we will do at Joseph Avenue Arts and Culture Alliance, at our space on Joseph Avenue. We want to make it a place where people will stop and look and enjoy being on Joseph Avenue. To all of you responsible for today, you are part of the continued legacy as we forge a new inspired path for Joseph Avenue Arts and Culture Alliance, Garth Fagan Dance, and every business of color in our community now and in the future. With tangible vision to ensure our future, investments like this will carry every community with the inclusion of people and businesses led by people that look like me into a greater appreciation of what we mean when we say a greater Rochester. Thank you, and congratulations to everyone.
Thank you, Bill. Just a couple of points I want to make. You know, diversity is one of the major areas why people choose urban environment. And you don't get a more diverse area than the 14621 neighborhoods. New foods, new music, new art, new customs, new traditions, new languages. 14621 is a place where you can experience them like no other. But those individuals that live there, they deserve to have a community just like people have in any other zip code. 14610, 14618, or like I said, 90210. So when they are subjected to being lived in hostages, or being subjected to open drug use or garbage being thrown all around their neighborhood, the mayor of the city of Rochester, the Rochester City Council, and all of us in this room have an obligation to make sure that we stop it and that we put forth a plan to make sure that we deal with the challenges that are in their neighborhoods. They're already living in one of the top 5 poorest neighborhoods in New York State. Why should that be exacerbated by people coming from outside of their neighborhood to exacerbate those problems even more? So I hope that you heard today that we are very much committed to making sure that we continue to focus on all these neighborhoods. You heard us talk about 14611, you heard us talk about 14605, we've talked about 14621, and all the other issues. And we will continue to renew this gun violence emergency as long as necessary until we see the numbers of violent crime going down to a level that is acceptable. No level of violent crime is acceptable. But we will continue to use this tool to make sure that we are able to see transformational change in our city, period. And we will make no apologies for it. I know that, I also want to thank the state. They recently cleaned up an encampment, another encampment that was on the corner, that was under 104 and Hudson Avenue. There's another one that they're working on right now as we speak. I just got a call about that one as I was standing up here. State property. They are absolutely key in terms of this collaboration and making sure that we do this. And then the other piece that is very important that I want to underline is that the city does not control human services, particularly housing, placing people in housing. But through our collaboration with the county and our partners, we have made this a priority because the challenges disproportionately fall on city residents, particularly poor Black and brown people. So we have to be at the table to make sure that we transform the city. I want to thank my team. What you saw here today is what one of my senior management team meetings look like. The only difference is I invited some city council members, so they're there. But this is what we talk about. And I wanted the public to see how we work on a regular basis to talk about it. I know social media, sometimes people say, oh, if it's on Facebook, it didn't happen. Well, it's happening, and it will continue to happen. Sometimes it's in front of the camera. But most of the work that is being done to address these issues are not being done in front of the camera. Remember, they said the revolution will not be televised. And many of the work that's happening here is not being televised. It's being done by the people in this community that are having the blood, sweat, and tears drip from their body to go and service these neighborhoods that are here. So I want to thank the community, people like the Joseph Avenue Art Center, people like the Joseph Avenue Business Association for their work as well. Now with that, I hit my 30-minute limit. I'll take a couple of questions. And remember, a question starts with who, what, where, when, why, and how.
What is the city doing to?
Did I call him? Who? Go ahead.
What is the city doing to get more outreach to youth? This is something I've witnessed being a youth in the community. We're seeing rec centers nearly empty. People are afraid to go to schools. So can you tell us in more detail what the city is doing to gain more touch?
Youth, yes. Well, I think that one of the things that Shirley Green is working on, and she can add to this, is making sure that we utilize the individuals that work in our rec centers to go out and do that outreach. So for example, over the summer, rec center folks were going out in the streets reminding young people and their parents about the opportunities that are happening. When you talk about young people, you just can't go to the young people, you also have to go to their parents. Because most parents, like me, I'm not gonna let my son go somewhere by himself, right? But if I know that my son is a regular at the Boys and Girls Club, but I know the individuals at the Boys and Girls Club, so I know that that is a safe space for them to go. So when we talk about young people, we can't talk about young people in isolation. We have to talk about the entire family. And the entire family has to be a part of the conversation with young people present to tell them why they should attend some of these events. And then they also have to know that they have to be kept safe. They have to know that they're going to be safe when they go into these places. So that's important. Mr. Saunders and his work, people think violence prevention programs, that they get the guns off the streets. No, much of violence prevention programs is also engaging young people. So over the summer, and I don't know if they've done them during the fall, Victor, the neighborhood, I call them the neighborhood pop-ups, where we go into neighborhoods and we would bring in DES, we would bring in all the services to the neighborhoods and say, hey, here's something you might be interested in. So we had young people riding horses this summer. We had young people selling wares through their businesses this summer. So we are finding ways that way to also connect with the young people. The other thing that we're doing is that we're making sure that we reinvigorate our partnership with the schools, which is extremely important. You can't have any of this if you work in isolation. One of our goals of this administration is the larger context. So when you talk about young people and families, you have to look at this in the larger context and make sure that you are working in a collaborative effort to make sure that you work together in order to engage young people in a way in which they feel safe and that they can have access to things that matter to them. They're not interested in listening to people yap and talk. They want to see them engaged in meaningful activities. I don't know you, but say your name, please, because you're new.
Brianna Collier.
Okay. Yes.
Mayor, you addressed the Luna Street encampment issue. We obviously know what's going on and what's being done there, but we know that that's not the only one. You talked about some of the other areas. I went to one over on Broadway and Meg's today. Is there going to be anything being done about that one, if anything?
There will be something done about every single every single encampment in the city. Absolutely. Some of those we have to work with our state partners. The one you just referenced, for example, is a state one that we will have to work collaboratively with them on. The one on Hudson, going over 104, is one that we had to work with the state on that we got cleaned up. But cleaning up the encampments are just the surface issues. The bigger issue that we have to make sure is that we work intensively with these individuals that are extremely hard to place. So while we can clean up, many times they will come back, but we need to make sure that we use mental health, substance abuse, addiction resources, housing providers, all working in tandem to be able to do this. The city of Rochester cannot do this alone. And I want to remind people that the city of Rochester, out of the big three, the school district, the county, and the city, who has the smallest budget?
City.
We do. But who bears the burden of having to deal with all of this? We do. And that's not fair and it's not right. And what I'm saying as mayor is that we need the help of everyone to be able to help us to be able to deal with that. We spend millions of dollars in giving money to providers. We need those providers to make sure that they are providing those services. And that means sometimes partnering with the RPD to make sure that it is safe for people to be able to go into these places. But the larger issue is, yes, we will clean up the encampments. But once we clean it up, what happens after that? And that is the bigger question that's important. How are we making sure that if you are someone that has a substance abuse disorder, that you still feel as though you have a place to go, get treatment, but more importantly, that we provide housing to you to make sure that you have a place that is safe and you have somewhere you can go. And we want to make sure that that is a piece of this because we're seeing violence as a result of what we're seeing at those encampments. Period. There have been people that have been robbed. There have been people that have been shot. There have been people that have been stabbed, and there was someone that was just died and lost their life on Monday. I'll take 2 more questions, then I got to wrap. Let's start with Isabel, and then Patrick.
Thank you. Mayor, this is up for you, but for Linda, just in regards to the address, you had mentioned 1085 going with the known, illegal entertainment and closures, and then the landlord taking action. Is there any, whether it's that one or some of the other properties that you have been able to close down, is there any plans for and consequences for those landlords that have now known, sites that are operating illegally?
Linda.
The first thing we do when we find out there's a problem, if we know there's an imminent event, we're using the gun violence emergency proclamation to put an immediate closure. Because while I wait to set up a meeting, someone could die in there. So we do that, and then we invite both the owner of the property and the tenant who's running the business in for a meeting. If the landlord cooperates and deals with the tenant, then there's not repercussions. If the landlord doesn't, we have the ability to seek closure of their building for any purpose for up to a year, and we have done that with a few business owners in 2022.
So just for clarification purposes, that site, the business and everything is closed
It is shuttered, that tenant is gone. They may be looking for a new tenant. I think we certainly had the impression that this was a landlord who maybe wasn't paying enough attention, but was not aware and was responsive as soon as we reached out.
But the bottom line there, Isabel, is that if you are doing illegal things in buildings that you are not supposed to, you wouldn't do it anywhere else, but people think they can do it in the city of Rochester. And see, that's the part that gets the mayor of Rochester peeved. They wouldn't try this anywhere else. We actually had someone say at Loomis Street, for example, oh, the neighborhood's violent anyway. Really? Tell that to the woman that's been living there for 50 years or has to live next to these places. But you got an 85% minority population living in these neighborhoods, but they should be subjected to that. But then someone wants to come from Fairport and tell us, oh, no, it's okay there. They wouldn't tolerate that if that was next to their neighborhood. So what I'm saying is no more. We're not going to do it. I got a 4-year term. And after that term, if people don't like it, they won't reelect me or I'll go back and do what I did before. But we're not going to tolerate this in the city. We can't. We can't. And we need people to be outraged about it. And that's why you see the community folks saying, we don't want this. We want to see you do something about it. But it's just not about identifying the problem. We're going to fix it. And these tools allow us to do that. So if you're operating a cannabis business, when you know it's not legal, we're going to come after you. You're not going to do it here. Go across the border somewhere else and do it. Try doing it in Wayne County. See how long you can get away with it for. Try it. Try it. Let me know. Wouldn't happen. But they think it can happen here in Rochester. Nah, we're not going for that. Patrick, last question.
Mayor, it's off topic. Walgreens closed 3 weeks ago yesterday. Today I drove by, I saw a Wellness by Rite Aid sign in the window. Does that mean that Rite Aid's coming to that spot?
I can't comment on what's going to happen there yet. I will tell you that the fact that Rite Aid closed was an abomination. Most populated neighborhood in Monroe County. No pharmacy? It's ridiculous. It should not have happened, period. Now, what do we do about it? We identified the problem. Remember, we talked about the problem. Now let's talk about the solution. So what we are doing is we are talking to multiple parties, multiple individuals led by Commissioner Dana Miller to see what we can get into that facility and into that spot. That is a major commercial corridor, and individuals in that neighborhood in 14611 deserve to be able to go and get their albuterol in cough drops just like anybody else.
Well, how much responsibility does the city have?
We have no responsibility. All we can do is advocate. We don't own that property. We don't own it. We don't own it. It's not ours. But we have the responsibility that we have are to our constituents that live there. And that's why we need to make sure that we advocate for them to make sure that they have access to services that they have in any other zip code.
One more question.
You said one. Well, okay, go ahead. Last one. I know.
Food Link, have they been notified or asked to come into that area? Or do we have a...
For what purpose? I don't know. Clarify your question, Patrick.
For food.
For food. Again, we are talking, now you know we set aside, and we'll have more to talk about on this very soon, $5 million for our Healthy Food Accessibility Program. Because, you know, many of our areas, the areas that many of we live in, particularly 14621, they are food deserts. So we have been in talks I'm sure Councilman Patterson wants to jump up and scream something, but he's not, about making sure that we attract grocery stores that are here. The bottom line is about the particular area that you're talking about, and if any of you are not familiar with that area, on the corner there where that Walgreens is closed, we need to have commerce there. A grocery store, a pharmacy, I don't care what it is there, but something needs to be there because it is the most densely populated area in Monroe County, and they deserve services, period, full stop, and it should not be sitting there vacant. And it's a shame that Walgreens didn't see the benefit of that area and that they didn't remain open there. I understand business decisions, I'm a banker, but from a social equity and justice, you can't out of one side of your mouth say that you're for social equity and justice, but at the same time close a store that is servicing 20,000 people in one of the most densely populated areas in Monroe County. That's wrong. But they have the opportunity to atone. And how they can atone is making sure that we attract the business in that area that is able to service the folks in that neighborhood. Thank you very much. We will have more updates this week. We'll be announcing the Peace Collective, which we've talked a lot about. We didn't want to get that crowded out here. We'll talk about that probably at the end of the week or early next week. And stay tuned for more updates and options of the things that are happening. And I appreciate you guys taking the time to come out today. Thank you.
Great job. As always. You're doing good.